is our first time being taped. You have to remember that we're live on camera.
You have to watch your language.
I'm gonna have to. You're right.
They put all the good-looking people on that.
Yeah,
That's right. Got the guy with
No,
a
I
dull
was trying to see
spotted
if I could
back.
tonight switch
And
to
you
the
look
other
pretty sharp
side.
tonight.
Well, that's why I shaved.
That's why I look at the back of my head, but I got a haircut.
Yeah, you got haircut. There's not much there to cut.
the good thing is that all they'll see is the back of your head, so unless they have voice recognition, they're not gonna know
Who's who,
yes.
yeah.
I wanted to rank advertising.
That's
I
our
wanted to
goal.
rank advertising when I sat on it.
Fill the bonds markets.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yep, so that's our family business.
Oh, okay.
And,
My wife is pissed when you get
I
it.
know. And I'm working on buying a business in town too, hopefully closing it shortly.
Okay. No, she wanted to go to the little small store. She hated that when I left.
Yeah, I know.
To the public
It's a
comments.
sticky situation.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, you got the two big stores in town.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide whether or not to do the
The
Phoenician
plaza
Impact
up
study
there, you know,
first.
at the end of town,
The
they
purpose of
screwed
this is
that
not
all
for
up.
public comments and
That
things.
remodeling, and I think the Stop and
Thinking
Shop
about that
lost
for
a
an
lot
hour.
of customers.
Well, when they had the strike this year, that really
They had a strike, and then it was tough in and out of there. I mean, you go to ShopRite,
That's not the purpose of this.
and that's where I go. Bother to go in there and fart around in that traffic.
Yeah, I mean, they're still family owned.
It is now 7
Shop
o'clock.
right,
The
yeah.
regular monthly meeting of the Southbury Board of Finance is called to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's see, we have a full complement of regular members here tonight, so we will not be seating alternates. As a point of information, though, I'd like to introduce to everyone Rob Laban, who is the sworn in today, I understand, as the Republican alternate. Welcome.
Thank you.
While our alternates don't vote, we do expect them to fully participate in the meeting, ask questions. You'll probably be asked to volunteer for a committee assignment of some sort over time. So, except when it comes to vote, we consider you full members.
Great.
Let's see, public comments. I don't think we've ever had this many people ever in my several decades doing this at a public meeting. This probably has something to do with the pool. We are, as you can see in the agenda, going to address the draft, first draft of the financial impact study required by the charter, which the fiscal office has prepared. We won't be doing that until we get into new business. That's one. Two, I understand the Board of Selectmen is going to have a public information meeting, hopefully before the next Board of Finance meeting. I certainly hope so. And at that time, that will be the time for the public, one, to ask questions, make comments, specifically about the pool. Whether there'll be interaction, I don't know. That'll be up to the selectmen as they have that meeting. We are gonna have public comments tonight. If they are about the pool, I can't stop you from talking about the pool, but they would, you're gonna have to do it again if you want them officially considered by the pool committee. If your questions deal with finances, well, we'll take note of them, and when we officially consider our position on the financial impact and a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen in the town in March, we would consider your questions at that time. So, I don't know if I made myself clear or not. I thought I did. So, would anyone like to speak? And we will have to limit people to 3 minutes. So, who would like to come up and speak? You don't have to if you don't want to, or if you just want to listen. We have one. Can you tell us your name and your location?
Hi, good evening. I'm Jessica Clark. I live at 48 Woodlot Lane here in Southbury. Thank you. I am speaking just about, I did come because of the Edgewood. I am a lifelong Southbury resident, and I'm a proud supporter and user of the aquatics programs in our town. And I just wanted to express my support towards your exploration of options that improve and support aquatics programs in our community. I am in the unique position of being a former Region 15 student athlete, swimmer, captain of the Yukon swim team, and Towns of Southbury Middlebury lifeguard. I am a proud swim parent. I have 2 daughters who are currently enrolled on our USS team here in town, which is a 150 member plus strong team. I do have a daughter on the high school team that has 55 girls on the team. We have, I'm very familiar with the boys swim team. They have over 80 student athletes on their roster. And to say that I'm familiar with swimming and the aquatics and swim facilities in our town, I guess would be a bit of an understatement. But I just wanted to say any investment in our community that promotes water safety, swim lessons, fitness, healthy competition, and recreation for our community residents of all ages are worthy of support. And I wanted to express my appreciation for your consideration of all the options that will continue to enhance our recreational aquatic options in our community. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to be heard or speak? Yes?
My name is Karen Fumano. I'm a Southbury resident. I live at 1026 Kettletown Road. And I would just like to echo what Jessica said. I'm not as prepared as she is, but I have 4 children that I raised at the pool in Southbury. They all were part of the summer swim team. Eventually, they all became lifeguards, head guards. They swim in college. I currently work for the Panther Aquatic Club as the registrar. And I know for a fact, I got a message from the high school swim coach tonight. He said there are 80 plus boys currently on the high school team. This is a town that people come to specifically for our strong swim program. And even for children who are not child athletes, being able as a mother of 4 children to get up in the morning, take my kids to the pool, let them meet their friends, have lunch there, and wear them out by the end of the day, really gave us a wonderful, wonderful quality of life, and I'm just so grateful that we had that opportunity. So I would support any measure that this town does to continue with an aquatics program. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, we'll move on. You can see we are going to discuss the financial impact. We also have a practice here to take our guests first when we have guest presentations. And all of you certainly are guests, but I understand we have a guest here who is here to talk about the solar project that the board has been working on. He has I don't know if it's brief or not, Tom, you can explain his presentation. So his presentation will be significantly shorter than the financial impact study. So we're going to take him first, if there are no objections. Tom, it's all yours.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, we talked about exploring, reforming an energy task force and exploring various solar options in the town. One, because it's make good for the environment, but most importantly, from this perspective, we think that it can save the town money.
Tom, could you move the mic toward you? It's recorded. Thank you.
Yes, now it's on. So at the last meeting and over the last month or two, we've been trying to reform the energy task force to explore solar options for the town. Primarily because we believe it will save the town money, independent of what you believe about solar, and it has the additional benefit of all the environmental benefits that go with that. Last meeting, remember Jeff said that he would take it on board, and we've talked to George Bertram, and he's going to join our task force. And
Tonight, though, I wanted to have Chuck give you a quick, just quick overview about what the task force is doing, what the next step is. And some of the reasons, I mean, we could have put it off, but I think some things are a little bit time critical in terms, so we wanted to push it forward. I don't think we're gonna take a lot of time, but we just got like a quick presentation to go through it.
Can you share with us who is on the task force at this moment?
Right now, Chuck is Chuck Liddy, he's heading the task force.
Okay.
I'm on the task force from Board of Finance, and George is on from Board of Selectmen. That's the task force right now. We are reaching out, and if anybody in the audience is interested and has good qualifications for this kind of thing, come talk to us. We'd love to have, love to have extra help in this regard. So, but one of the follow-up items here is to put out a kind of general ask for help on the task force. Okay.
For those of you that don't know me, I have to do it.
Can you bring the mic down to you and turn around or whatever?
That's all right, I can see the slide better here anyhow. Can you hear me all right? Yeah, all right. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Chuck Liddy. I trained as a management scientist. I spent 31 years with GE Capital, primarily in the risk management function. Also have a natural resources background, and went back after I retired and got a degree in sustainable design. So when Tom and Dan asked me to come and give this presentation, I wanted to talk a little bit about this financial framework that we're developing, because that's very important when you do solar projects. And you can tell I spent 31 years in risk management. I take a risk management view of life in general, right? So I've broken them down into 4 major categories for you. And the reason this is important is it's not just the financial tenets that we're going to be adhering to. There's so many other things along risk management that can have a profound impact on the economics or the cost effectiveness of these deals. So it's important to think about all these elements of risk. Obviously, we want to adhere to price tenets, right? We want to pay less for electricity than we presently are. If we're going to do PPAs or any sort of contracts like that, we don't want escalators built into them. And we want to enable the town to capture financial benefits that they can't presently, as a tax, not taxable entity, make use of. But more than that, and as Tom mentioned, there's some time sensitivity to being able to recognize some of these solar incentives that are out there. In particular, the ZREC timing, these are the renewable energy credits. The auctions are typically held once, sometimes twice a year. Last one was in April, and we think another one's coming up in April now. These credits are essential to making these deals work. And if we're going to be doing one of these, we want to be putting out an RFP right now so that we can have it ready in time for the April auction. There might be another one in October, but it's somewhat doubtful. Similarly, there's I have a VNMQ cap up there. That stands for virtual net metering. This is what we didn't get in the 2014 landfill deal. You can think of it as community solar, but for municipalities. And there is a cap that is placed on this queue. And right now we're waiting on the legislature to see if they're going to allocate more money to it. We think they are. But nevertheless, the savvy towns are already going in and putting in their applications. And so we need to get into the queue if we're going to do anything that, like a landfill project or on remote property that, where you're not directly attached to the building with your solar panels. It's no expense and no obligation to put in. It's an easy process to get into the queue. So if we're going to go forward along those lines, that's an element risk we should control for. Similarly, I won't go through all the contract provisions. A PPA agreement is like any long-term agreement. It needs to have some very robust clauses in it, including things like end of term, what happens to the equipment at the end of term, obviously construction delay penalties, insurance, interconnection costs. All of those need to be highly specified in the agreements. Another element of risk is the site selection itself, right? You don't want to put solar panels on a roof that's highly aged but isn't ready for replacement. You obviously shade and orientation, everybody thinks about shade and orientation. If you're going to put it on a landfill, you got to think about whether you're going to penetrate that cap or not, right? And you might want to use ballasted solar arrays rather than a technology that might penetrate that cap. And the vendor management aspect of it, right? There's like any long-term arrangement, you want to make sure they're going to be financially solvent enough to for the life of the deal. You got to go through a management assessment. You got to make sure that they can handle everything they're committing to, O&M costs, right? Because in a PPA agreement, there's no ownership risk. It's all on the solar vendor. But what happens if they go under, right? So these are all kinds of things that you need to be thinking about. In addition to the technology they offer and the normal things that they've done comparable projects and that kind of thing. And I do want to point out that the solar PV will address the generation part of the energy management equation. The T&D charges, capacity charges, that's part of a larger energy management strategy, right? But it's not addressed by solar panels. You're only impacting the generation part of it, of the electrical cost equation. So part of this has been going around to neighboring towns and understanding what they're doing on solar deals and dissecting what we did with our last solar deal. And we took a look at the documentation for what went on with the transfer station, and they got to the point where they were ready to make an agreement and discovered they were too far back in the virtual net metering queue to make the deal work. So that was one of the major problems with that deal. Also, there were a lot of, the price itself was just too high, and there was an escalator. The deal was literally underwater for the first few years. So it really didn't make a lot of sense to move forward. There were a lot of terms in the PPA agreement as it was specified that weren't in the town's favor, and we're going to need a heavy dose of negotiation to bring back around. No performance guarantees, for example, and what happens when they shut down, the risk was all on Southbury. We have talked a little bit. We've begun a dialogue with the region and on their solar carports up at Rochambeau. And, of course, the PPA rate looks high. It's 13 cents, which, on the market, you can get about 6 to 9 cents right now. But it includes the cost of construction. So unless you have all the pro forma assumptions borne out in there, it's hard to tease out what part is construction and what part isn't. They have told us that they're paying less than 20% of their average region rate. That's, we got to talk to them a little bit deeper, and they have offered us up to take a good look at the PPA. So we'll get a much better idea at that point. I've been sitting on the Newtown Sustainable Energy Commission as a guest for a couple of years, and they're well along the solar path. So we have an open dialogue with them. You can see they've done a landfill project, they've done a wastewater project. They're nearly they're about 70% of their buildings, town buildings, are solarized at this point. And they got a plan to do the remaining ones, including a brownfield, by the way. And I also know the people down in Fairfield, and you can see they've been quite aggressive. They've got 32 solar energy projects on town buildings. They've done a number of other things like microgrids and a fuel cell for their wastewater treatment plant. And in their sustainable CT application, they're saving $2.8 million a year. They're a much bigger town than us, of course. So, we have a few other towns in queue, but this is some of the best practices that we've been doing as we're developing this framework. And one of the things we're proposing is that we go through a structured process to first prioritize candidate sites and then go deeper with either a vendor or an independent contractor to sort out what the best sites might be. And this is illustrative. It's just me making up weights and scores, but the idea is we would get all of the stakeholders in a room together and we would hash this out, right? What should each weighting of each of these categories should be? What should be the actual scores? And once you do this, it's a very healthy dialogue that ensues, and you can distill the key factors in a very easy fashion for everybody to understand. And it's surprising what typically pops out at this. You know, you can see just in this little exercise I did, some of the parking lots come up pretty high. A low score means it's a pretty favorable score, and as well as you know, some of the properties, but they're all dependent on virtual net metering and us getting this application in. So as Tom, excuse me, as Tom said, there's a number of next steps. Volunteer recruitment is one of them. You see a number of skills that we're looking for around reviewing contracts, making good use of incentives, building systems, although in talking with John in Public Works, he's got people working on this already, so I'm not sure how much help we can give him there. We're happy to take on some data management, tracking and analysis, as well as, you know, just general advisement on renewable energies systems. So in terms of what I think we ought to be doing is we want to continue to narrow down our list of town properties so we can get an RFP out there in short order. And I'd like to propose that we have a structured session to do that in the near future, if everybody's open to that. And we really should go ahead and just put in a virtual net metering application, just because it's an easy process and it's no obligation and no cost. And in the meantime, we'll continue compiling historic data and doing some analysis, as well as developing a template PPA. I have several PPAs that I've already gathered from Newtown and other towns as well. So.
What does PPA stand for?
Oh, I'm sorry. I assumed everybody here was already at that point. It's Power Purchase Agreement.
Power purchase agreement.
So it's basically a long-term contract, very similar to a lease arrangement in its structure at least. So a third party comes in, they own the arrays, and they do everything for you. And in turn, you agree to either a fixed electric rate over the term of the deal, or a rate with escalators, which we don't want.
Do we have enough time between now and 8 weeks, middle of April, to put in a PPA and?
Well, the PPA comes much later in the
I'm
process.
sorry, I mean
Yeah,
VNM. What does VNM stand for?
Virtual net metering.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we have time to get the application in. It's a simple, easy to do application. I just need to sit with somebody in the town and go through the process. And the RFPs, I could probably have a draft RFP to Dan by, you know, the end of the week.
We don't have to identify specific sites
Well, we do need to go through that process as well.
in the application part?
Not for virtual net well, the virtual net metering, we would do it for a candidate site. So we would have to at least decide whether we want to do a landfill or one of the other properties the town owns. And I think we could make that decision relatively quickly.
You have to make that decision in the next 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that, again, is for the virtual net metering. If we go direct connect, which is the lower risk pilot project kind of way to go, it's a much simpler process.
Okay.
Yeah, the virtual net metering is really required if you need to connect to the electrical grid and stuff. Now, it's not connected. Where if you're in something, if you're on like a roof or something where you already connect into the more directly into the electrical grid, you don't need
I'm trying to go back, but I don't seem to be successful with this.
Is this the last of your slides?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I think certainly the Board of Finance is interested in saving money. We entered into this process 4 or 5 years ago with an eye towards making it happen, and you know that one didn't work for a variety of reasons. I guess we're still of a mind to ask the Board of Selectmen to pursue this. We certainly like to save the money, depending on what all the terms and conditions are.
Tell me, are these solar, are they standalone investments? You invest in, for the income, you have a decent return. Or do we need these incentives? I take it there must be some financial incentives out there? Is that what makes it go?
Yeah, there are a variety of financial incentives
So there-
available. There's the ITC, right, the income tax credit. There
We
is,
don't pay income
right,
tax.
but you can realize it through something like a power purchase agreement.
Okay.
Because you don't own the arrays, the third party does. So they take all the risk from the town. you're not responsible for operations and maintenance.
I understand
They
that.
take all of that, right? The other two, which I went through very quickly, are the renewable energy credits, the ZRECs. And that's the one that the auction is coming up in April, right? So we'd want to be ready if we were going to say put,
But what are these energy credits? That's money that we get in return for doing this, or what is it?
anytime somebody puts on a solar array, or
Yeah.
they are eligible for a renewable energy credit.
So
Well,
that's,
so-
is that money that the state's putting out there?
Yeah, it's an incentive. It's a state incentive,
Okay, so,
yeah.
but,
And so is virtual net metering. It's just, virtual net metering is for solar farms.
so
So,
I'm trying to, you know, I wanna have an investment that stands on its own. Now, with these solar panels, they don't stand on their own. They have to have these other incentives, is that right?
they have to have these incentives to have a decent payback period.
Yes. So what it gets down to, the government has come up with incentives to make people do things, investment, which wouldn't stand on their own. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
That always bothers me as an engineer that used to work for a company that had to invest properly, not based on incentives.
well, yeah, and you see, this is very common with startup technologies all over the place. They did the same thing in the oil industry, right? There's a lot of subsidies and federal programs to help them get off the ground, and that's what the government did with these solar panels. Now, the cost has been coming down dramatically in the solar panels, and that's why the investment tax credit is winding down, and the other incentives are winding down, because they're becoming more cost-effective on their own without the incentives.
So are these, I'll get into this more.
I think Dick Points relates to the project we have on the library. And the project we had on the library had a 27-year payback, which no sane person would do, except we got a load of credits
Yeah,
from a whole bunch of people, I guess, and we got supposedly a 5 or 7 year payback. So it was done.
yeah.
So I think that's it.
Well, we paid
But-
1/3 of the cost for the library, somebody else paid 2/3. And I'm not comfortable with doing that. To me, that's a waste of, the citizens' money when you do that. And I understand why they're trying to do it, because we're into the environmental and the green thing, which I don't necessarily agree with. I'm one of the other ones, I guess, a denier. But, you know, that's what I was asking. Do they stand alone? The answer is they don't.
Yeah, but take a look at these power purchase agreements, which Newtown and Fairfield are doing.
Yeah.
They're getting a rate of 6 to 9 cents a kilowatt hour
No, I understand.
for the
You
next
end up-
20 years.
You end up saving somebody, you end up saving money because somebody else put up the money. And we're the ones that put up the money for this state through taxes. So they put it out, and I know they do, and everybody wants to go get it. But I just don't like that at all.
This board has had this discussion about using
Once or twice
the
before,
state's
right?
money more than once. And we have not been unanimous ever in our decision-making, but we have always decided that if the government is gonna put out this money to incent people to do things, and we can be the beneficiary of it, it's our obligation to do that for the benefits of Southbury residents,
Right.
rather than saying no thank you and let other residents in other towns get the benefit. So while the concept is anathema to us, we bite our cheek and take the money.
Hmm.
So don't be dissuaded because we have to take grants. That's been our practice in the past. So I think what we need to do is, I think the board either needs to affirm that, yeah, we think the Board of Selectmen ought to get moving on this, get the committee do what they have to do, certainly before the town is gonna spend any money or enter any long-term contracts. If it has a financial impact, it has to come back here.
Sure.
So, does anyone object to the Board of Selectmen pursuing this?
So I
If
just
If
wanna
not,
say
well, then
that,
we're gonna,
let me just say that I didn't realize they were gonna be giving a presentation
oh,
until I saw it today.
oh,
So,
Oh, I thought that'd have been, I thought you would have been notified.
no, just today.
okay.
So I would expect this to be brought before the Board of Selectmen at the next regular meeting to take out. We do have selectmen sitting in the room here, and we also have, I'm sure they're
Okay, well, regardless of
Apologize
chickens and
for that,
eggs,
yeah.
I think the Board of Finance would encourage the subcommittee and the Board of Selectmen to pursue this.
Well, Tom came to me and we talked about it,
Yeah,
one-on-one, and I said, absolutely, I think it's the time if you could take on the task to look at this, given all the other things that are going on in town hall as well.
Right, the only reason we fast-tracked this,
That's fine.
you know,
it's
and,
April.
and is that we were kind of on a schedule, and so,
My office is always, take your call.
But I think we've also had multiple discussions with you and Dan already about it, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
let's bring it to the, so are you recommending that we bring it to the Board of Selectmen?
Well, I'd like to, yeah,
Okay.
before the Board of Selectmen at the next regular meeting, and
Okay.
we'll have that information. I don't see, I would suspect that they're, more than wanting to move forward with this and get some numbers. The original back in 2000, when I first came into office, that whole thing just wasn't working, and everybody's looked that over, the numbers.
Well, and we told, that's the story we told up there
Yeah.
on one slide.
And it was
about
like
why-
14 cents a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
It was very high.
It was very high, and they didn't get virtual net metering,
And
which,
they had, and
and,
the Xerox were, yeah, the
And-
contract was bad.
yeah, oh, yeah, the contract was definitely bad, and, you know, it was underwater for the first few years of the deal,
We saw that.
yeah.
Okay, well, I think the Board of Finance would encourage you in parallel and before the next Board of Selectmen meeting, keep doing the background work you need to do so that when you go to them, you've got something that's ready.
Sure.
To keep you ready to go. Okay,
Good.
Chuck, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see, Dick, the discussion on 490, how long might that take?
I don't know. It's
Or-
not just 490,
It's
it's
tax exempt
Tony's
properties.
entire package
Yes.
that he worked. The question is, what is happening with that? What do we need to get that moving? That's not just 490, but it's the tax incentives that he went
understand.
through, the 490,
I understand.
everything.
What I'd like to do is not do that now. I don't know how long that might
No, that's
last.
fine. In
Okay.
fact, we can move it to next month.
No, we'll do it tonight. I just want to do it with all our guests
Okay.
here, so they don't have to sit here and listen to that too. This was bad enough.
But I did point out that that was a misnomer, the way it's written.
Yes, we will address that. Okay, the fiscal office, has a draft of a financial impact report, which is now required by the charter, on, the Edgewood property. And Dan is gonna make that presentation. We will have an interactive discussion with him. We are, based on our thoughts and comments, and no doubtedly, there'll be some thoughts and comments from the people in the audience who won't be participating, but you're more than welcome to submit questions in writing to the first selectman, or be prepared at the public information meeting to raise those questions. It would be better if you raised them now, so the proper research could be done, so questions could be answered at the public information meeting. Well now, Dan, you've got it.
Good. Sorry, my voice is kind of shot right now, but trying to get through it as best I can. So what we did was, you know, when we ventured into this, we met with the owners of Edgewood, and they were gracious enough to give us their tax returns and financial statements. So we put together a P&L based upon their current and our current pool.
Is your microphone on?
It is, Dick. So we put together a basic P&L based upon what we currently pay for the pool at Valentine, what we estimate if we redo the pool at Valentine, the cost would be. And then we took what the financial statements of Edgewood were, and based upon a kind of a put-together revenue stream based upon the numbers that we were given, a P&L based on that as well. So the first column under current Southbury is kind of where we're at with the pool today. So currently we have 28 lifeguards and 2 head lifeguards. It costs us $121,000 just for the staff at the pool on an annual basis. As we scroll down, these numbers are pulled out. So supplies are $59.26, utilities. So these are basically all the operating costs for the pool on an annual basis. So if you scroll down, Betsy, we can. So total operating costs of the pool annually are $161,990. Out of that, we get $71,946 in revenue, which is pool memberships, day passes, swim program, swim lessons. So every year, we have an operational loss of $90,044 on the pool currently. What we realized in doing this, if you scroll up, Betsy, to the second column. Yes. What we realized in looking at Edgewood's financials is they do their operation with a larger pool with half the lifeguards that we currently have. So this year's budget, we talked to the Park and Rec director and we reduced the lifeguards from 76,471 to 48,279, which should be the proper amount of lifeguards for the pool. And we also reduced the head lifeguards from 2 to 1. So that came up with a cost of $57,379. All the other operating costs remain the same. So if we scroll down, Betsy. So if everything remains the same, we're gonna lose $25,000 on a new pool without bonding the pool to put it in. So what we did was we were getting estimates from our engineers of what the cost of a new pool would be, and they were from $2.9 million to $4.5 million. So we did a rough bonding schedule based on $1 million, because we have $2 million set aside already to replace the pool. So if we bonded out $1 million, the debt servicing on that would be $91,667 a year, which would give us an operation loss of $117,000 for a new pool. Then what we did was we took what we think we can do at Edgewood, what their costs are based upon their P&L, and what we think it would cost the town to run that facility. So if you scroll back up, that's it. So we assumed the lifeguards would be the same, and the head lifeguards, because that's basically pulled from their financial statements of what they pay. The front desk staff and the facilities coordinator, we put in there based upon what Edgewood currently has and what they pay to have those people. The taxes, they have a tennis program with a tennis assistant, so that's what they pay their tennis assistant for, which is basically, I think, someone just to follow around the kids and pick up the balls. Their supplies are a little higher because, of course, they're a bigger facility than we currently have. Utilities are higher because they are fully lighted, so all of the tennis courts, the basketball court, the paddle tennis, the pool is lit, and it's a heated pool, unlike Valentine, so that's why the utility costs are higher. Insurance is a little higher based upon the facility, but that's based on Susie's numbers, and we think in working with Kerma, we could probably get that number down to what we're paying. Workers' comp is just based upon a 2%, which is what our workers' comp is currently. Credit card fees, we figured what they currently have taken in for credit cards and the fees to run the operation. So their operating maintenance, given the fact that they have a 5,300 square foot building, tennis courts, paddle tennis, is $37,290 a year. So we put that number in there based upon what they're currently doing, thinking that our operating maintenance would be about the same. We also added an infrastructure reserve, which they don't have, but we put it in based upon the town's 15-year infrastructure plan. So that would be if anything happened in the building, we would start reserving for the roof, any other maintenance, one-time maintenance that would need to be done. We also put in a non-annual maintenance of $3,500. That's just things that if something happened to the fencing or things like that, that we'd have to repair. So we're gonna estimate at $3,500. Payroll processing is the same. Paddle tennis, because the paddle tennis courts, just what Edgewood pays currently right now. The league event and fees, they operate USTA events, which generates revenue to the club. We would continue to do that. So we would have the league operating fees of $52.44. Food and beverage we took out because the way we look at it is that we would try and lease the full commercial kitchen that they have over there to a caterer, rather than the town running that. Fire control is just basically what the system for the fire alarms that are in there. The taxes are $53,775. That's real estate taxes and sewer taxes on the building. So we would still have to pay those taxes unless we entered into an agreement with Middlebury, but we're currently estimating that we're going to continue to pay those taxes. So that comes to a total cost to run the facility of $281,939. We estimate that we can get revenue of about $312,000, and if you scroll down, Betsy, we can show where that comes from. So, right to there and scroll over a little bit. Yep. Nope, scroll back up, Betsy, sorry.
Here's the 312.
So, on the left is our current pool membership. So if you scroll up a little bit, Betsy, you can see. So at Ballantyne currently, we have 85 residential family memberships that we sell every year. We have 2 residential individuals. We have 24 seniors. So we have 111 passes, family passes for residents of Southbury that we sell for Ballantyne. We sell 1,030 day passes for residents. We sell 809 child day passes. We sell, we have 283 swim lessons throughout the year, and we have a swim team which generates a number of about $10,000. So what we estimate we could do is, based upon what Edgewood currently has and what our current pool is, we think we can get 200 Southbury residents at a rate of $350, which is a considerable difference to what the current rate is for Edgewood for a Southbury resident, but not much higher than what we're charging at Ballantyne at $290. We think we can keep the same 2 individuals and 2 seniors with just a same increase based upon what the family is. Day passes, we think about 1,000. We raised that up a little bit just because of the facility, a newer facility, the building, and child passes we estimate about at 800. Swim lessons would be the same, swim team would be about the same. The one thing that we put in, because it is going to be more than what we currently have for Ballantyne, we thought we would put in a scholarship program for about 50 families of Southbury at $200. So that would be based similar to how we do the heating assistance. So if people couldn't afford to join at $350, we would enable them to join at $200. And I think that was a suggestion by Jeff and the board, so that was a. So currently, outside of non-residents at Southbury, we have about 160 members that pay $1,100 a month. We figured we could reduce that to $800 a month, which would generate a revenue of about $128,000. So all total, and the tennis we have, we would continue what they have there, so the tennis-only membership, which would be people that only play tennis in the facility. Also, they have USTA events and leagues, so based upon what we received from Edgewood, they generate about $18,000 for the season for that. The region would also use these tennis courts as their home tennis courts, which would save the region about $1 million to resurface their tennis courts, which are badly in need of resurfacing. So we would charge them $20,000 to use the facility. And I've reached out and spoken to Joe Martino at the region about that as well. And Post University also uses these courts for certain events, which generates about $11,000. So that's where we get the $312,000 in revenue that we're estimating we can generate for this facility on an annual basis. We put a rough estimate of the catering outsource of $5,000. We didn't include that in the revenue number yet because we want to hammer that down to kind of get a better understanding of who would be interested in doing it, if anyone would be interested in doing it. So that's why we kept it out of the revenue number. So we think that we can run this facility with a expected revenues over expenditures of about $31,000 a year, which we would run it as we would run this facility as an outside special revenue fund outside of the budget. So the only taxpayer money that would be spent on this would be the initial $2 million that we have earmarked for the pool to be replaced. Other than that, this facility should be self-sustaining, and anything above what we need, we would roll back in, similar to the police private duty special revenue fund, back into the general fund.
Dan, do you want to scroll to the bottom, the numbers?
So, if you scroll back up, Betsy, sorry. So that's where we come up with the 30,771, which is our estimated revenue over expenditures to run the facility.
Dan, my recollection on looking at these, that the numbers reflect a longer season, right?
Yes.
At Edgewood, because
their
of the
season,
heated pool,
they
it would open earlier and be open later.
Their season starts May 15th and it ends September 15th. So we would be able to keep the pool open longer, based upon the heated pool.
So with a longer season, there's still a lower operating cost net
No, a
after
little,
revenues.
with revenues, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
net after revenues.
Net after revenues, yes, you're
Right.
correct, John.
Any other questions? Yes, Kath?
You had mentioned in the beginning that Edgewood had less lifeguards than,
They do, yes.
like, why?
What we realize is what Edgewood does, they do 15-minute shifts on the chair, and they have 4 lifeguards. On our shifts, we have anywhere between 10 and 12 lifeguards, very similar to a 15-minute shift. So they just run it a little more operationally tighter than we run our pool.
We have more than they need.
We have more than we need at,
Okay,
at
alright.
More than we need.
Valentine.
Then
I
it's
was
gonna
just
be
wondering,
fixed.
making sure everyone's getting lunch, that's all.
I have 3.
Bill?
You want me to do one at a time or all 3?
One at a time. Go
One at a
ahead.
time. The 2 million is already reserved in our,
Bill?
We have $1 million.
Earmarked.
Bill, we have $1.2 million earmarked. But what we're doing this year, and you'll see when we do the budget, we're putting together a revenue, special revenue reserve fund that you'll see how we come to the $2 million.
okay. And the bond funding costs, I think I saw it's 91,667. How's
Yeah,
that
and that's over on the
calculated?
right, Betsy. If you scroll to the right, and then scroll down from there. So that's right there, Bill. We estimate if we bond $1 million, which would be $3 million for the pool, our average balance would be about 50% at 5% interest, and the annual principal. So that's where we come up with the 91,667.
And the term is what?
It's 20.
Well, we did a 15.
Oh, sorry, 15 year. Sorry.
4-year note, because you can't bond $1 million.
Right.
It's a commercial loan.
Yeah, we would have to go to Ion Bank for a commercial
Right.
loan.
Ah, okay, so this is not a long-term bonding. This is a
Correct.
loan
Yeah.
from a bank.
Yes.
Yes.
4-year term.
Yes.
Yeah, a 4-year term with a 15-year, a 15-year term with a 4-year balloon, assuming that we'll keep rolling it.
But that 91,667 is the annual cost to fund
On a 15-year basis.
$1 million.
$1 million,
loan
yes.
With the upfront fees amortized over 4 years.
Right,
15
upfront
years.
fees, yeah.
So you've probably got closing costs or upfront costs to just get the loan closed? No?
You said
No,
melted it into the
Okay,
million.
melted it in. And, this one's kind of subjective. The usability and the size of the pool compare, I probably could have read that in the newspaper, and I think I did, but which pool is better?
Well,
Subjectively.
better is funny.
For what- for the use it's gonna have.
Edgewood is actually bigger than Valentine. Where the benefit is with Edgewood is it has a 0 entry, so and it has a splash pad. So it starts at depths of about 1/4 of an inch and slowly goes down to, I think it was 9 feet.
Yeah, so it's bigger.
It's bigger.
And for the use it's gonna have, it's, let's call it subjectively better in all kinds of ways, not the least of which is access. It's more modern, it's newer, et cetera.
And the facility bill is fully ADA compliant, where
Access.
Valentine, we're not fully ADA compliant.
But a new $3 million pool would be compliant.
No, that's just a pool deck.
Pardon me?
Dick, hold on, we're gonna, one at a time, please.
It's just-
Oh, I
so-
thought you-
Last one, I promised, Dick. So, a big assumption, I guess, is that you're gonna maintain the non-Southbury fees at 800 a pop. if that doesn't happen, for whatever reason, the town chooses not to make it South Barians only, that changes the math
Yes,
considerably.
considerably,
Oh, yeah.
All right, so that's an observation, not a question.
yes.
And that's obviously not for us, the policy
we're-
decision for us not to make, but
We're-
that's
we're
a
hope-
big one.
We're hoping,
my
Bill,
view.
that the incentive is that we are reducing the current fee from 1,100 to 800, and that would be incentive to keep some of the people there.
Okay, thank you.
Rob, one time, please, Rob?
Yeah. Are there costs with closing up the existing pool that should be baked into this?
Yeah, we baked in about $100,000 to close up the existing pool. The committee, we have an ad hoc committee that Jeff had formed, that we're looking at all the options of what we're gonna do with the existing facility, and, we'll see how that comes out. We don't have a full cost yet, but we estimate about $100,000.
I think that $100,000 is both the cost to secure the facility, so it's not an attractive nuisance, and any closing costs we might have in the deal. So those two, quote, closing costs, securing and closing, are in the $100,000.
Remember that the existing pool is completely fenced in and locked. So it's secure as far as that goes. It's it's always locked unless there's someone manning it, so they're always there. Talk is, do we do a skateboard park with the existing hole? There's a lot of things that could go along with it. That may not be necessarily demolishing and filling in. It just depends on where we go if this decision is made.
Yeah, and as the committee looks at this, that's some of the things we're gonna be looking at, maybe possibility of skateboard park, or even putting a splash pad there.
Dick, and then Tom. Dick, you had a comment, question?
Yeah, you're assuming what, 2.9 million for a new pool?
That's just a pool, Dick. That's not to bring the pool house to ADA compliance.
Okay, but that pool would be ADA compliant,
The new one.
so
The
it'd
pool-
be comparable to Edgewater
What,
once we build it,
it
right?
wouldn't be a zero entry. We would still have to use the chairs, the ADA lift chairs. And the building itself wouldn't be ADA compliant.
Okay,
But
we
yes,
haven't
you're
seen-
right.
We haven't seen anything about the pool design. We haven't had any reports yet on what the pool proposal is. Nothing's been put out to us yet.
And Dick, we're still working, like today, we had a call with the person that actually built the pool at Edgewood. So, and I have a call out to Nee James, so we're still working on those numbers. These are the numbers that we got, were from Weston and Sampson, our engineer, that went and looked at the pool and put together what they thought it would cost to replace it.
Tom and then Joan. Tom?
Yeah, I was probably commenting.
Oh, I was partly commenting to Bill's comment, is that are we going to cap the membership? I'm a little bit more concerned about the opposite, is that we get too many people. And so, and at some point that the operating, that some of our operating assumptions don't work because we've got too many people. Are we going to cap are we planning to try to cap the membership or?
Saying, what would we do with all that money?
Well, not what we, it's, I mean, but at some point, maybe our assumptions don't stop working because we have too many people.
I think the committee is gonna have to think about that. We're just dealing with the financial impact of this, with this model. And I guess if the committee comes back with data or thoughts that make this model not work.
Because this is a significantly, I think, nicer facility, broader facility than the pool was, right? So it would be much more attractive, I think, to maybe other, to other townspeople to join. I guess I just don't want to get in a situation where we have to cap it and some people can't get in or something like that too, but, yeah.
Joan? These questions?
Well, Dan will answer some of them have been answered.
Turn that on.
Okay. Couple of questions I have. One does relate to Newtown, which charges $540 for a year-round family membership, and that's year-round because they have an indoor pool. Will we be able to, I have the opposite concern that Tom has, will we be able to get enough members, given that from the center of town here, it's not that much further to the Newtown facility. Then the second question I have is, before we make a final decision to purchase Edgewood, I know it's only 10 years old, but things happen. You get cracks in things, you have things shift. Are you going to have a structural engineer go in and thoroughly vet that facility?
Yeah, Joan, one of the things that we talked about in the committee is we are going to have an engineer go in and look at the whole facility, so everything from the pool to the tennis courts to the building itself. We spoke to the person that put the pool in today, and he thinks that we would get at least 40 to 50 years out of the pool right now, the way it's structured and built. But we would get confirmation from an engineer on that.
Dick?
Yeah. Do we have any idea what it costs them to build that pool?
We got a price stick of about $890,000.
Yeah, and that was 10 years ago?
Yes.
So that would probably be, it wouldn't close to double, but
About $1.3 million.
I'm trying to compare
$1.1 million
what
to $1.3
that cost and
million.
what we're talking about for our new pool. They don't,
Yes.
it doesn't make sense.
No, and that's one thing that we're gonna look at with the engineer that gave us the numbers, because their numbers, if we look at other facilities though, if we look at Greenwich, and Weston and Sampson put the Greenwich facility in, they spent just under $9 million for their pool and their building, their pool house. So I think they were basing it on, their estimates were based on that build out that they did for the town of Greenwich. If you look at Wallingford spent about $5.8 million on their pool 2 years ago. Now their pool is a lot bigger than the one that would have at Edgewood or at Valentine. But so the costs, although they are a little high, we'd have to dig a little deeper into it when we start getting costs from other pool manufacturers that we're going to reach out to with the committee.
Okay, it's stated there's 10 acres thereabouts, a little over 10 acres.
10.5 acres.
You know how much is in the developed area? How many acres?
We do have the map. I can provide that to you. I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to say a number, Dick, until I know the exact number of what is in the wetlands and what's not. But I think when we toured, I think everything that's built is the area that's not in the wetlands, with the parking lot and the buildings and the pool, the tennis courts.
So all the non-developed stuff is maybe in wetlands.
It could
It's
be in
useless.
wetlands, yes.
But yet it's appraised at like 40 some thousand per acre, I noticed. Okay.
When we started this, I know that George was reaching out to a couple of people, especially the Y in Waterbury, and they were very interested in coming and look at the facility, especially with the size. So.
But, okay, if it's wetlands, we can't do anything with it. I understood it was wetlands, it's not?
The thing we'd have to look at is the 5 acres next to it is also for sale. So,
How much of the current unused space is wet, do you know?
I have that, I don't have it with me, no, but I can get it for you.
Yeah, well, that's something we're gonna have to look at, obviously. If we buy the place, we'll be taxed upon wetlands, which we shouldn't be, so maybe we can get the taxes down.
Could you share with us the assumptions relative to partnering with any of our neighbors in this model? Could you talk about that for a few minutes?
Well, we haven't fully reached out yet to our neighboring partners, but one of the things maybe down the line what we'd look at is opening this up to Middlebury and Woodbury, where they would pay a fee to get a certain number of members at Southbury rates, and make it more of a regional facility. But we thought what we would do is have it at least for a year to see how we run it under Southbury, and then open it up after that. One of the things we first thought was that we could reach out to Middlebury and have them, waive the taxes and give us a certain amount each year for a certain number of members, but we're not so sure that is open to us right now.
Rob?
On like the cap for the amount of members, if you think of like a Planet Fitness or something, they may have thousands of members, but at any point in time there may be 100 people in there. So that, you could have an upside, but I think it's more of a safety question. What's the maximum number of people that could use the facility at a certain point in time? So I don't know if Edgewood has that number per the fire marshal or whoever it would be. And then the other thing I wanted to ask was the commercial kitchen, how big is it? And does it make sense to possibly lease that out as like a separate entity and, you know, let someone use it as a commercial food space?
That's in there.
One of the,
At least
yeah,
in there.
one of the things we looked at, Rob, or what we're gonna look to is to lease out that space. Part of the thing we get with, if we do end up buying this facility, is the town gets a liquor license as well,
Okay.
which is affiliated with that catering company, there. But we would, yeah, look to lease that space out, because when we first talked about it, and, you know, I'm sure when the committee meets, we don't wanna be in the food service business.
Commercial kitchen is stating it's basically a fast food kitchen, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was very small.
It
That's
was-
what it is,
Yeah,
it's a fast food
snack,
kitchen.
it's basically a snack bar for.
Yes,
Okay.
that's
for-
all it is.
Okay.
But they do have the commercial great appliances in
Yeah,
there.
they got, yeah.
Are there any other questions at this point? Okay, let's do this. Hopefully, we'll have the public hearing on this and get more questions and comments from the public before our next Board of Finance meeting. And based on that input and those questions and engineering reports and wetland studies and things we have a record today of being asked, we'll have those answers and a more refined financial impact study for our next meeting. And the goal would be, at our next meeting for the Board of Finance, to make a recommendation on the finances. Now, the Board of Selectmen's select committee on this has operational issues and structure, you know, a lot of things to deal with. And that would come in due course. So, for now, if anyone has any afterthoughts, after questions, please get them to Dan, and we will address them, make sure they get addressed at our next meeting. That seem like a fair way to proceed?
I would just like to see the pool report. I assume some,
Replacement cost
well, I assume there's a report.
I can send you, Dick, what we got,
on
yeah, from
the
Weston and
potential
Sampson.
new pool cost and
Yep.
size and all that.
Yep, I can get that for
We
you,
need
Dick.
to look at that,
Absolutely.
okay?
Because that is open. We've got a $3 million estimate here, $2 million in cash and $1 million in a note.
Yeah,
And
$3
that
million.
may or may not work. We don't know.
John, just one
So,
other
yes,
thing.
John?
Dan, when you're looking at this, and we look at the wetlands versus the non-wet areas, let's take a look at how much usable ground is not wet.
Yeah.
And is there room there that we can put in an all-purpose field, another baseball field, or something like that? Because that could be an additional benefit if on the spot that is not controlled by wetlands, we can just put in another field.
I can tell you by looking at the map, there is no other room as far as, you know, it's wetlands is the unused part.
Okay.
So you wouldn't be able to put in any fields. I sat on wetlands for 18 years, and I looked at the wetlands map, and that's, you know, what I want to judge this potential purchase. If
On
you
its
judge
own.
it based on its own as a pool,
Okay.
the added side of this is 6 tennis courts, basketball courts, a basketball court, addition to the pool. There's a value there, but just based on the pool itself, what this
Okay.
project stands up.
So I just got information from Tom Marks, who's on the pool ad hoc committee as well, and he said it looks about 6.25 of the 10 acres are developed
Or developed now.
now.
Okay.
Okay.
What's that, 2 point, what?
6.25 of the 10 acres are
Of the
developed.
10, six
Yeah.
and a half are developed?
6.25.
6 and a quarter out of the 10, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I-
Didn't look like that at all.
Yes, Joan,
Oh.
one more, and then we'll
Yeah,
move
one
on.
more question. I just want to know, since I don't have young children in this town, can children currently walk or bike to to Valentine Park, and would they not be able to do that there? Does accessibility make a difference?
good question. I'm sure the committee will address that. Okay, why don't we close this off, and we'll move on. The rest of you are more than welcome to stay, but our feelings will not be hurt if you leave. So it's your call. So moving on. Dick had asked if we have could the board be brought up to date on where we are on our committee's report on tax abatement suggestions to the Board of Selectmen. And I think I saw an email that had an answer to that. Doug or Dan, do you remember what that email was? Or Jeff, do you want to speak to it? Or
So we're the one that Cindy sent out that we were going to open up the POCDs for revale.
I think the answer was, except for the things that relate to the plan of conservation development, the 490, except for the 490 issues, all the other issues are in the hands of a town attorney to be addressed as an ordinance change. That's what I thought I read. So everything except the stuff that is under the purview of the planning commission is with the town attorney to be executed. As to the stuff that's before the planning commission, they have decided, which is their prerogative, to address those when they do the revised plan of conservation and development next year or the year after. So that's where we are.
Is the valuation of 490 acreage, is that to the planning commission? I thought that was up to the assessor.
During reevaluation.
I had a conversation with the assessor specifically about that, because he has been asked. And what he tells me, he is preparing for us the statutes that he believes control the timing of changing the value on that property. And he told me that his understanding of the statutes, which he is going to get to us, is that it can be changed at any time that all the other values are changed. In other words, it is inappropriate to change one section of valuation in the grand list without addressing the others. And he says that is what the statutes tell him, in spite of what his brethren in the Northwest Connecticut Assessors Association say. And he also told me that he is not aware of any of those members, any of those assessors who in fact have done what they said they could do.
Is that counter to what you were told
That's
by
what-
those assessors?
Maybe you and I are gonna go talk to the assessor.
I'm not gonna disagree with what he is saying. I'm not sure that I would advise an assessor to be of legal counsel on opining on statutes, but I'd rather have an attorney give us a view on that. And for every attorney, this is a personal view on attorneys, for every view that we get that's what we want to do, which is to move it along faster, I think we probably have another attorney saying that we have to go slower. So my view is we wait for the assessor's logic of waiting and
How
needing
many
to
open
wait.
spaces?
I was told specifically by a couple of different assessors in other parts of the state that you can change it
Right.
in any given year,
Well, that's something I
at
think
any
we
grand
oughta-
list that's
we oughta
determined,
work
and
out.
it's not
Well,
dependent upon any other action.
How many 490 parcels are there? You remember?
I don't.
Okay.
47?
Huh?
Is it 47? I'm trying to
Oh,
remember
no,
the chart.
no, there's probably
70.
400 or 300 or something. It's a fairly big number, I guess.
It's over 100 for
Otherwise,
sure.
you'd think the guy could go in and quickly change them. But if you
I-
wait for the
Dick, I don't
assessment,
think
you
his
get-
view is it's the complexity of the number of parcels. I think he's
if you
he's
wait,
taking
okay.
a lawyer's view
Pardon
of when
me?
the statute allows you to make a change to PA
I
490
wonder,
value.
what is the statute? Do we know what the number is? So we can go
He is-
read it?
Dick, the assessor told me he is gonna get me the statute
Okay.
for this board's review.
Would you follow up? Because
will.
I'd like to read it.
I
I can
did.
read a statute probably as good as he can.
Well, we have determined that this board doesn't read the law. He get lawyers to do it.
No, I
because it's
understand that,
much more
John, but we can
complicated
read
than
it and then make a statement. I don't sit and wait for some lawyer to say X or that we can do it or not. I wanna read it myself. I suspect the idea is if I wait for a reassessment, somebody else will do the work. But yes, I'd like to read the statute.
I am pursuing that,
Okay.
as you wanted it done, I'm gonna pursue that with the assessor.
You know, it's the same way with the planning commission and on changing the rules on 490. I mean, the document we have right now, the 2012 document is wrong. It states it wrong, and they can't even change that, let alone change what our people came up with as a good suggestion.
This is under the purview of the planning commission, not the board of finance or the board of selectmen. We're gonna do what the planning commission, we're gonna follow their process, because it's their process.
We got a planning commission guy right here.
Anything else, Dick, on this? If not, we'll move along.
John?
No,
one-
I'm just disappointed that Bill's committee went through a lot of effort, and basically, let's just put it aside. I know that we're gonna get the tax thing finally handled, but that's a pretty minor item. That was a minor change. It didn't really help many people at all. But this 490 is a much bigger deal.
John, would you ask the assessor, please, to get that information on the statute and his interpretation
Yeah.
to us
Yeah.
in time that we can review it and deal with it and talk with it at the next meeting? I don't want to keep on pushing this off because all of a sudden we say, well, I'll have that for you in 5 months or 6 months. Ask him to get us that information before the next meeting so we can look at that. There's no reason if he's just going to give us the statute and give us a quick interpretation of the statute, there's no reason that we can't get that before the next meeting and look at it.
Before I forget, didn't he move it from 500 an acre to 600? Or was that when we had a revalue?
That was when the last reval.
At the reval. Okay, moving along. Correspondence and announcements. We announced Rob's appointment. And while we're at it, you want to volunteer to work on the lighting thing with Tom? Energy thing? You got some time to do that?
If you'd like me to.
That'd be great. Thank you. Cut his teeth on it. We can get the guy going. Okay. Yeah, there you go. So the honeymoon is over. Sorry about that. Welcome, that's right. This was not the first time this happened to a new guy.
Tom, there's some ideas in my office, so we'll go, some other ideas that some other people have been good on.
Yeah, okay, great.
Minutes, we have minutes from 2 meetings, the 13th and the 21st. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Further discussion, additions or corrections? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ordered. For selectmen's report.
Well, we're still grinding down on the, final numbers on the budget. I think, hopefully we can do better, but let's keep in mind that a 10% increase in, our healthcare costs are significant. We're doing pretty good. Fire department this week, we have not met with them yet. And then, Friday, I hope to have this out to the,
We don't have another planning study
out to
until
the
2 more years.
Board of Selectmen, and I think everybody will get a brush at it, take a look at that. Other than that, we're, a lot of retirements, a lot of people moving, so we're running, pretty thin on, personnel, a lot of, kind of holes in the operational side, with these retirements. But, the good thing is we have some good candidates coming in on, Dolores Curtis's position, and of course, our zoning wetlands officer also, so we'll cover the departments as we have to, and, the only other thing we have that's, looming is for the Board of Finance and, Selectmen, we're gonna probably have to go to temporary fuel tanks for some time. so you can probably expect to see some increases in, cost of fuel and the rental of the tanks. And, planning commission, the planning, denied the application, but we're working on that. All right?
Remember the $475,000 we appropriated to do the tanks? Can't do it. Planning commission said no.
No, I understand. I know why they did, because they had a huge group of people complaining. So, and I,
For better or for worse.
all right,
Anything else?
just a minute. We can't get the state to give us a few more months to leave those tanks in the ground?
John Cattell was asked, and, you know, he called them or emailed them, they said absolutely not. April 31st?
May first.
May 1st.
May first answer.
I mean, they've gotta be,
DEP refused our
Now, they don't say that we can't put tanks back in the ground at the same spot, right?
we can't do that.
We can do that.
We can do that. We'd
Yes.
still, if we were gonna do that, we would still need to bring in temporary fuel tanks while that was being done. And then also, depending on if you get in there, it's open-ended, if there's any contamination, you got a remediation. But, I'm working on some other things, and just know that it could be, that part of the budget could be higher than, it's definitely gonna be higher than expected, because that was not expected, so.
But we haven't written a letter to the state specifically
State said no.
asking.
They were contacted, they said no.
John did reach out to them, and they did say no.
I know they reached out. They haven't officially asked by letter for an extension and make them write a letter back saying no, instead of somebody over the phone saying no.
No, it was an email, I believe, wasn't it?
I believe
It was an email.
Yes.
Is, Jeff,
Shit.
my understanding of this is that the declination was based on a concern about quote-unquote public safety. Now, my other understanding there is when we were talking about this, that John Cattell said that these new tanks, there were no public safety issues. So if we have the planning commission saying that they believe there is a public safety issue, when the.
Health, safety, and welfare was the.
Yeah,
reason
and
for
when the pros say there is no public safety issue,
I don't-
okay, I don't understand that.
You can't ever say that when you got 5,000 gallons of fuel above ground. I mean, there's always a possibility.
There's 10,000 gallon, they're two 10,000 gallon tanks.
Okay,
You can't
20,000.
fill them to capacity, so it's about roughly 9,000 gallons each.
You can't ever say there's no safety.
You have to understand that within, I don't think it's half a mile in downtown, right in the center of our town, there's 300,000 gallons of liquid fuel, including a very large, I don't know what the size of the propane tank is, that is used to transfer propane into trucks for delivery, that is not what you call, contained as much as this fueling station is. So in my opinion, the experts who came there, testified to that, it's pretty cut and dry that they actually ship they ship these above ground fuel tanks. Environmentally, they're safer. It's in a water, what's the word? Water, shed zone. It's within the zone. So bring them above ground environmentally is better. As far as safety goes, they ship these tanks to, my understanding, ship them overseas to embassies for security. They're fully ballistic tested.
Yeah.
So,
The pros went through this. Let me ask this. If we determine, people who don't have standing here, determine that their decision was arbitrary and capricious because experts testified that it was safe by the standards that these things are adjudicated by.
so there will be a meeting Thursday, tomorrow we'll be looking for a special board of selectmen's meeting to discuss some options from a legal perspective that I cannot discuss here.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, I think our feeling is if all these other things around town, by the experts, if they are a worse standard, if they are worse, as we think, than what we're trying to do, and the experts say what we're trying to do is better than the standards of the stuff that's here, then I would think the Board of Finance is telling the first selectman that we think there ought to be a serious consideration of the planning commission being held to task for an arbitrary and capricious decision. So, and
That's my job.
And that's not our place.
I'm working on it.
That's you, and, but I think that's what we're getting at.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
I can assure
I'm
you.
not sure the town wants to go down that road. I hear what you're saying, but
you're right.
no, I just, that's not something you wanna get
It's a
started.
little bit more complex than I've been meeting with you.
Yes.
Okay, all right,
I would not go down that road.
thank you. Anything else?
It's been busy with all that. It's been busy.
Dan? Report?
So like Jeff said, we are just about finished with the departmental budgets. We have the fire department coming in Wednesday. We should be finished by Friday. And you guys should have access to the Dropbox at that point. We should put them into the public Dropbox at that point. I don't know if you had a chance, anyone had a chance to look at the new financial reports that I prepared. I did include a balance sheet this month, which will include going forward, which will take away some of the other fund sheets that we put together. This is all inclusive on that balance sheet. You may have noticed also in the reports that our property taxes collection this year, as of January 30th, was 91%, whereas in the past it was 94 and 96%. We moved our collections to February 3rd this year, and one of our banks, which deposited last year on January 28th, deposited on February 3rd. So that's the majority of the difference, was $1.68 million that went in the bank on February 3rd. So if I actually ran this report as of February 3rd, we're in line with where we were for the
Last
last
year.
3
Good.
years.
Okay.
Well, certainly last year.
Certainly
Because
last
I think
year.
the year
The year
before
before at
we-
96.5.
93 something, yeah.
And I think one of the things that may have affected it, because like this happened to me once, if you pay to the lockbox and put it in the mail and it's postmarked by the date it's supposed to be postmarked, my check that I sent in took 7 days to clear. So in other words, the bank and the town did not get
the money.
that money for 7 days after the last day of the tax period. So that's an issue with using the lockbox. When the volume comes in, it just takes them some period of time to process this stuff.
So I think if we post that late collection against January 31st like last year, or the same collection percentage as we were last year, and if the next 5 months this year pattern the same 5 months of last year,
We'll be good.
then we will be even, because you remember last year we were $85,000 short on 62 million.
Yeah.
So, which is a break even. We finally got it right. So it looks like we're on track to be exactly what we should be, but we'll see what the next 5 months brings.
We also received from CCM, the revenue expectations that we're gonna receive from the state of Connecticut for next year. And it looks like we're gonna be pretty much flat, to what they had anticipated. They're not gonna cut anything. They're actually gonna increase our ECS by about $28,000. Other than that, it's pretty much the same.
When do we first hear from the Region 15?
We're gonna have a meeting with Region 15, I believe they
Yes.
set it for March 15th, but I'll get.
Well, that's the meeting, but when are we gonna find out about what they're gonna
They're
put
doing
in their
an
budget?
initial meeting February 27th, so we should have their numbers sometime on that.
And who, that piece about the teacher pension piece, does that, when
As
does
of
that?
right now,
That is through Region 15 or just directly?
What I heard from CCM, our representative at CCM, is he said that the state has not said they were gonna do anything to municipalities with teachers' pensions, but expect something, but it's gonna be nowhere near what they said it was gonna be last year. But he didn't have the figures
Did we
yet.
pay something last year?
No.
No, but they were estimating us to be $200,000.
We had a 3-year phase-in. I suspect the legislature will go for a 10-year phase-in, so it'll probably cost us 55
We got that all
or 60.
busted already.
We will when we get the number, yeah.
And we've already heard that there's about $1 million swing for, toward us because of students, more students in Middlebury.
Yeah,
Less,
there's
no, no,
not-
Pardon me?
not toward us, it's less money for us.
Yeah, less
money
I'm
for
sorry.
us, yeah.
Yeah, we went
There's
from
$1 million already, so that's
We
good.
went from 67% to 65.9%.
That's a percent and a half or so right there.
That's good.
I think would you please send an email to everyone specifically reminding us when that special meeting of the two boards of finance and board of education is? And also, it
4
probably
days in a
happened
row.
either
coming up.
before or
You gotta
right
meet 4
around our
days
next
in a row.
meeting. We need to
The end of the month.
somehow get something to look at so that we might pose questions about things we're curious, we want them to talk about.
Right.
I think last year, they had, it was an excellent presentation, I thought. But we didn't get, how are we gonna go about getting information beforehand so we can have questions that we would like them to address in their presentation?
We got an invite, John, but the invite was only made to the chair of the Board of Finance. It was only to you to go to a informational meeting, I think it was February 27th, at the region.
Is that a
on the
public
budget.
meeting?
No.
Okay, well, I'll go to that, but really,
Yeah, I'll send it to you. We got it, just this week.
well, if you'll get that to me, I will go. And somehow, we're gonna get something to you folks so you can pose some questions to them. You
And
know,
Josh.
we don't need a dog and pony show.
And Josh had told us that they are gonna do the informational meeting with all the boards this year again, so I think it's gonna be around March 15th, but I'll get the exact date and I'll email it out to you guys.
Also, please remember that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, February 24, 5, 6, and 7, we have the department meetings here. So Rob, you'll be here that night, 7 to 10, I guess.
Okay.
24, 5, 6, and 7, we meet with all the departments.
Sometimes 11.
Well,
Is
the
that-
department heads that the selectmen
That's a
wanted
selectman
to
meeting.
meet with. Also, because the budget, it will be up on the website, I think it behooves us by the end of next week to look at that, and if any member of the Board of Finance has questions, they should get them to Dan about things, and if the questions are easily answered, I'm gonna propose that Dan can answer them for you, and if the questions go deep into the budget presentation and issues, well then, we will ask those department heads to come to one of these 4 nights.
Aren't those 4 nights the selectmen's meetings?
It's a selectmen's meeting, we are invited guests.
Yeah, you said you were gonna ask people to come, and I said
think-
it's the,
Well, I'm saying,
okay.
if we have questions that Dan can't answer, I would hope, put it that way, that Dan would go to the first selectman and say, gee, we need to have this department head, because we have Board of Finance members who have questions.
Okay.
But John, in the past, we've always been able to, we have questions after those meetings, invite other people to come to our meeting for further.
That has always been the case. Yes, and we have a special meeting, because the charter says any department that wants to come talk to us, because they didn't get what they wanted through the Board of Selectmen, they have a right to do that, and that's on our schedule. We should get Rob that schedule.
Yep.
So
I
he's
just
up
need
to
to get
speed
you
on
to know,
it.
Rob.
You came at a very exciting time. To say the least. Okay, anything else?
No,
Dan?
the only other thing I have is the pool committee, Jeff's ad hoc committee, he set it up, it's myself, Tom, Connor from the Board of Finance, George Bertram from the Board of Selectmen, and Tom Marks, who's on the Strategic Plan Commission. So we had a meeting, last week, we're having another meeting next week, and we're gonna start hammering out engineering studies and all the other stuff with the pool, so hopefully by next meeting, we'll have more information for you guys on that.
Okay, fiscal reports.
Question?
Whoops, yes, I'm sorry, Bill.
When will the, budgets be posted to
Friday.
this Friday?
Yeah.
Available to all of us?
You've gotta get figure out the access to the Dropbox and learn how to use it.
I don't think I have
You You also
Dropbox
can?
anymore.
I don't,
No, you should have it also, Kathy, yeah, that's it.
thank you. If I have it, I don't remember.
Okay, financial reports. Dan, this is a consent agenda. Were there any questions in any of the financial reports?
I've got some questions, but I'm gonna come and visit with him and you can explain them.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's just things when I look through it, so,
Sure.
yeah.
John,
Yeah.
I'd just like to get one thing in the
Sure.
minutes. It's under financial reports, but I want to correct something. When we did the sit-down and looking at the balance sheets and the audited town financial statements, I noted that there was a criticism in there that said the town did not have any policy that was putting the control of interest rate risk, and there was no limitation on the length of investments, fixed rate investments the town could make. And I sent to Dan a copy of the town policy that set that at 3 years, which actually is in accordance with state statutes, I believe. So I just want to get it on the record that we have notified the auditors about that, and that was an error on the auditor's part. to put
Their
that in.
comment was in error because there was a policy?
There was,
Yes.
yeah, I wrote the policy about 10
Yeah.
years ago.
Well, why don't we make sure the minutes reflect that?
That's why I brought it up. I
Okay,
wanted,
fine.
I thought it should be in the minutes that,
Thank you.
That comment by the auditors was incorrect.
Were there any other suggestions, management letter from the auditors that needs a response to OPM?
No, the only thing we had was the purchasing, the federal purchasing guidelines. Other than that, and then there's the constant IT, what we have, and I spoke to Ray about it, but there was nothing else in there.
I think OPM requires a written response to them about any auditor's comments.
Yep, and
So-
we had those too, and I did respond to them, John.
Oh, you have responded to them?
Yeah.
Oh, fine, okay, thank you. Okay, next, unfinished business, to-do list? Nothing on the to-do list? Transfers?
Hard to believe.
Nothing to do, how do you like that? I don't remember any transfers.
We didn't have any
There weren't any
transfers, no.
transfers, okay.
Basically because we changed the way that we're doing that, John, but we're not doing the individual ones.
The small ones?
Yeah, the small
If they're
ones.
big ones?
Yeah, the big ones we
But
we
there
don't
were no
have
small
anything
ones,
yet.
okay. Tom, IPOC?
We got the final, I have a HIPAC meeting next week, we haven't had an IPOC meeting, but we got the final fiscal year results for all the funds. The pension fund was 20.5% last year, the library fund was.
Calendar year?
The calendar year,
20%.
20.5%. So, the library fund was 18.9%, and the reserve fund was 5.4%, which the reserve fund really pops at me because we only got
Wow.
10% in equity, and so we got 3 or 4% more than we would have gotten instead.
Wow.
But yeah, I can go the other way too, I guess.
But the number that counts is next June.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I
Just
just
cross
say,
our fingers.
I say it mostly for Dick because he keeps saying on a fiscal year, so.
Right.
But then.
Well, it's gone up, you have to admit, the market's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he keeps telling me, oh, no, God,
19
no.
times earnings, okay.
Okay,
Why don't
but
we-
wait, one more
okay,
thing.
go ahead.
Sort of a slightly more important thing, I think, is that FIA is merging with a group called the Mayo Schneider, okay? It's just a sort of similar sized group in Chicago. As a result, we have to sign a consent letter. You know, there's a bunch of, so I don't want to go through it in detail, and if anybody wants to, they can. I don't think it's going to substantially change anything. But I'm going to take all the details to IPOC next week, but we have to sign a consent letter by the end of this month. So I guess what I would like is, assuming IPOC's happy with it, that if IPOC recommends to the, to Jeff to sign the letter, that we're okay with that process. It's just really a letter, a consent letter saying that they're going engaging in a merger. We're happy to keep them at least, the merger doesn't happen really until April, but to even go forward with the merger, they need a consent letter
miss a question. What, there is a, quote, charter created by the Board of Selectmen that says who's responsible for what. Maybe it's an ordinance, I don't know which. And who is responsible, what does that charter say about what's going on here? Put it that way.
We don't know what, we'll have to look into that, and we'll have to see who has to sign that and who has to authorize that. I mean, we can contact our, the town attorney.
Yeah. So I'll.
Okay.
Let's get ahead of it, and
There-
we'll make sure.
There will be, when you look at it, there will be a requirement that the Board of Selectmen approve it, because the Board of Selectmen was the entity
Yeah,
that
that's
appointed the current advisor.
right.
And the current advisor is
That answers the
merging, so
question.
there'll have to be a new appointment of that new entity.
So,
What's the timeline?
That's
so I'm
my
guessing
point.
it's gotta be done in February, so what I'm saying now is we're not gonna, well, maybe we will have another Board of Finance meeting before then, but what I was gonna suggest was the IPOC, I'm gonna review it in IPOC,
Okay,
make a recommendation,
right,
and assuming we recommend go forward, then we can take it directly without any kind of special Board of Finance.
right,
Right, to the Board of Selectmen
when is the IPOC next meet?
next week.
If the process that is put in place says it's the Board of Selectmen's responsibility upon the recommendation of the IPOC, fabulous.
But usually it goes through the Board of
Yes,
Finance.
yes,
Well,
I'm sorry, yes.
What does it say?
The process is that IPOC recommends the appointment of an advisor for the pension funds and so forth to the Board of Selectmen,
Not to us,
not to us. Where we come in,
Fine.
if
So
you
that doesn't
remember
matter.
the
so
old
you don't have to
process-
worry about us.
Okay.
No, you don't have to worry. We
Okay.
only get involved when
Okay.
there's a change
Tom, if
of
we have-
investment
A couple other things.
stuff.
Yes.
We have to, we're probably gonna have a special meeting this Thursday, but if we have to, on a recommendation, let me know when your IPOC is meeting. We're not
IPOC's
having a-
next Tuesday.
Is that before? It is just
Well,
before,
that's perfect.
so we can put it on the agenda for the
Yeah.
board, okay.
John, just so you know, I'm also on FIA's mailing list. I've gone through everything.
Uh-huh,
And in essence, nothing is changing. We're gonna have the same advisors. Everything is gonna be the same as far as we're concerned, except now there'll be these two firms coming together, and the name of the firm will change. But we're still gonna have all the same people, the same research capabilities. and
that's
so on.
between IPOC and the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Great. Anything else, Tom?
No.
Insurance, Janet,
Just
Board of
one
Education.
thing on Board of Education, so I went to the pension, the region.
Oh,
pension
yes.
meeting, Okay,
How recently?
last week.
Oh, okay.
So, again, so there's three pieces of information that I've been pushing them on, right? One is, so they finally have really found the official IPS, okay? And so
IPF?
the IPS, the investment policy.
Statement, okay.
That was signed, okay? For a long time, it was in limbo and nobody knew where it was, but we've got it, we've got our hands on it. The only thing that's a little disturbing about that is that in some areas, we're running outside of the allocation. But we've again we formally agreed to leave it the way it is for now. You know, you can run outside the allocation
Yeah.
as long as you formally agree. So we formally agreed at the committee to leave it up the way it is for now, because we're in this process of putting out an RFP for, for a new advisor. Okay, so they're going through the process of putting out an RFP, to get, to get a new advisor. And, our suspicion is that once we go through that process, we're gonna have to, and if we do get a new advisor, we're gonna have to reallocate similar, do a whole process anyway. But we got formal agreement to stay, to essentially be in the allocation we're in. And they're putting out the RFP for the new advisor. And then I think most importantly for us going into the budget meeting with them is they have the same issue we do with the 10% health care cost going up. And so it's gonna be very difficult for them to juggle enough money to really, so remember the other agreement for them is they're probably somewhere between 65 and 70% funded the non-teacher pension fund.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
pension.
And so again, the agreement was that they would start, an approach to upping that over time. And so they agree they're gonna start an approach to upping that over time. But to kind of do it very dramatically, especially this year, is gonna be difficult because of the 10% increase in healthcare. So I told them we would be receptive as long as it was formulaic and it was committed to doing it formulaically over a series of years over time.
The last time, 2 years ago when I was there, we did get them to agree that they would fully fund their annual contribution. Because they weren't even fully funding their annual contribution, much less their fully funded percentage, two entirely different things. Do you know where they are
Well,
on
I think
that?
I think it's there is this other issue, right, which is how they do things operationally, which is non-standard.
Pay
So
direct
I do
rather
think
than
they
through the
really
fund?
do fully fund their annual contribution, it's just they do it in a funny way.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay.
But their annual contribution is not sufficient to get them to, it's not sufficient to really move the needle on getting them to hire. So they're gonna have to put maybe more than their annual contribution into their pension if they wanna move the needle on the.
So, do we know what percentage they're at?
They're roughly at 70% with 7% assumption.
At seven?
Seven.
Yeah.
At seven.
After a 20% year,
What?
after a really nice
Yes,
multi-year.
Yeah, last
Yeah.
10 years with,
yes.
well, they've had
So-
some strange asset allocations too, really weird.
So, so they've got some work to do on that, I think.
So is there,
So-
they're gonna agree to talk about what the
They're-
target would
what-
be over what time period?
Yes, I said we'd be amenable to
Yeah.
them not addressing it all in one
Yeah.
stick, as long as they have a kind of formulaic approach to addressing it over time.
To get to some percentage over some period of time.
Exactly.
And they're gonna work on that.
Yes.
We can't ask for more than that at this point. That's excellent, that's good. That's huge progress.
It
Huge
is
progress.
But there's one thing over there that still needs to be looked at, and that's OPEB. There are non-pension post-retirement benefits in medical. They do offer post-retirement medical at taxpayer expense, okay? Standard accounting practices, they were supposed to have started accruing for that and putting money aside for that and funding it, i.e. funding the pension quite some time ago. And they haven't started yet. They haven't touched one thing on that obligation to do it.
Yeah, GASB requires that, John.
GASB requires that. I pointed that to them 10
Yeah.
years ago.
So is that in,
GASB requires
but
that.
is that, is that in the jurisdiction of the pension?
That's
committee? Is
a
that something
third, that may be a third thing.
That's not really my
No, that's
jurisdiction.
not it.
Yes.
That's a different issue.
Right.
It's not a pension issue.
John,
Okay.
I will call Joe and Josh about that.
Yeah,
I will
we need
call
to
them
talk to
and
them because
ask them.
eventually that's going to come back because,
Understand.
they are supposed to under GASB.
Yeah, they should get an exception in the audit.
Yeah.
If it's not
I
there.
believe there may be
Counting
an
is in there.
exception.
Okay, we will pursue that, John. Can you put that on the to-do list? I'll put my name next to it. Insurance Working Group. Do we have a meeting?
We have a meeting on February,
It's Kerma.
yes, with Kerma,
But we have not had a meeting since our last meeting of.
with the region. No,
The region.
we will not.
So we're good with we're good with the region. As far as Kerm is concerned, and Jeff, you need to think about this a little. I think 3 years ago, the Board of Selectmen asked the Board of Finance to be the Board of Selectmen's working group on insurance. So health insurance and property liability, all the town insurances, because it is more something we do than Board of Selectmen does. And I would imagine we are still willing to do that. But because the Board of Selectmen is reconstituted every 2 years, the you ought to ask us again if we would do it, in anticipation of your asking, and in anticipation of our saying, yes, we will continue to do it. I'd like to reconstitute it, because Art Mulligan, myself, and were you the third person on the, with Kerma?
No, I wasn't I'm just the third person you're alternate with
On the other.
on the school.
I can't remember who, I can't remember. I know Art Mulligan and I were the Board of Finance's working group with the selectmen. I thought there was a third person.
I invited John into the current meeting.
You
He's
did?
invited me
Okay.
already.
So, we need a third, Rob. So,
And your wife just went back to the door.
Actually, John, I would like to be on.
oh, you would like to do that?
Voluntold.
You've been
saved.
exempt. You're off.
You can give her
Okay,
give her her
Joan.
20
Would you
later.
send Joan,
I'll send you the invite,
send
John.
her the invite.
Okay.
So, the Board of Finance, we will tell the Board of Selectmen, if you would like us to continue, that Joan, John, and I will be their working group, to work with the first selectman, the treasurer, and the assistant on insurance matters. Okay?
We'll have that on the agenda.
Roads and bridges, Dick?
The only thing, John Cottrell got a updated remaining life for the roads at 14.14. It's a little less than we thought it might be, but that's still pretty good.
Yeah, it's
And the
excellent.
roads in town are good.
Wow.
Wasn't that much lower than that about 3-4 years ago?
It was like 8 or something.
Yeah.
when we
It was
started.
8 or 9,
Yeah,
and
it was
a
way
goal
low.
of 12. Yeah.
No, it's made a huge gain, yes.
Okay, RUPAC, no meetings, strategic planning, John?
No report because they haven't met. They're meeting tomorrow. And I'll be there.
Any other business? Motion to adjourn. Second? Second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstaining? We're adjourned. Don't forget 24, 5, 6, and 7. If you can, please be here. And also the regional meeting.